Hello, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well. It's a nice day here in Kent, nice hot Indian summer we're having. It's late or mid-September, and I want to go over a picture that I took in the Lake District a few weeks back when I was up there. There was a lovely little piece of forested woodland at the side of the road coming up from, was it Buttermere? I think it was Buttermere, and I stopped in a little lay-by and just mooched across the road, took the tripod and the camera with me, and went about 200 yards into the woods. There's thick sort of ferns everywhere, and it was all nice and vibrant and green, and I was presented with an image that I wanted to get, but I couldn't actually get it in the way I wanted to get it. And basically my problem was that this image, which you'll see here, if you look at it carefully, you'll see that I wanted the three trees, there's one in the distance, one in the centre, and then two framing it. I wanted them to actually have separation, and no matter where and how I tried, the second image I'll show now, that image actually is clipping on one side and the other one's clipping the trees on the other side, and I can't get the separation between the two trees. So what I ended up doing, which is cheating to some people, but I don't see it as cheating particularly, is I basically photo merged the two images together so that the one that had the separation on the left hand side between the trees but not the separation on the right, and vice versa, the one that had the separation on the right but not the separation on the left, merge them together to produce the image that I'm going to show you now. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch across to screencasting, and I'm going to talk you through how I merged those two images together. It wasn't quite as straightforward as I'd hoped it would be, but I think the end result was worth it because you've already seen the end result, and it's quite a pleasing little woodland scene. I'm quite pleased with it, but I just couldn't accept the image as it was with the clipping, and no matter where and how I moved and which focal length I used, I couldn't actually achieve the separation that I needed and still maintain the image in a balanced way. So let's move across to screencasting and I'll show you how I did it. Okay, so this is the first image, and I want to explain why I had a problem with it. Basically, this tree here, which is, these two trees are in the foreground, they represent the main interest. This tree in the centre between them in the distance is nicely spaced between them, but this tree is now clipped and there's no gap between it and this tree, whereas this one on the right has got a nice gap, and that is what I like to see. Now, the second image, which is this one, is, well, it has the tree on the right being clipped by this tree, and the one on the left's now got a gap, which I like, but I don't like the right hand side, as I was discussing earlier. So what I made was this image by blending the two images together, and we've got a nice gap between this tree and the foreground tree, and we've got a nice gap between this tree and the foreground tree, and the one in the centre between them is actually in the centre perfectly as well. So I'll talk you through how I did that by moving into Photoshop. So let's select these two images and say open as layers in Photoshop. Okay, here we are in Photoshop. We've got both of the images loaded down here on the right. The order of them doesn't really matter because it's a case of which one do I blend to the other one. But the first thing I need to do is actually tell it to basically align the layers as best it can to avoid the slight movements between them. So I've selected both of these two layers, and then we go over to Edit and we go Auto Align Layers. And it's going to have difficulty doing that because they are from slightly different perspectives, but what it should do is it should get the basic layout correct. So if I now, having done that, turn one off and then the other one, you can see there is a slight difference between the positions of the trees, but this one is in the centre, this tree is in the centre in this top image, and the spacing's correct here for this side of the image to work for me. But this side isn't right, so what I need to do, and if I just turn that layer off, the layer underneath, the image underneath, has got the spacing right on this side. So what I need to do is gently cut out, and because we've got all this nice bracken everywhere, the cut between the two images is not going to be noticeable. So what I'm going to do is get a big eraser up here, which is this one, and set it just to work on this layer, and we need a layer mask, so let's create a layer mask here, which is I don't work in Photoshop as often as I should do. Layer mask, it should be that one. There we go. Right, so I need a paintbrush, and it's black to conceal and white to reveal, or it's the other way around. I always get it the wrong way around. So in theory, if I start painting, no, it's the other way around. If I now start using that brush and brushing away through to the image underneath, and being very careful just to stick to the very left hand side of this picture, the opacity is not set to 100%, so I'm having to go over it a couple of times. Now you can see I've made a mistake here in this area because I've actually started to cut away from the lower image, so let's just go backwards. Go backwards doesn't work very well when I've got these video cards installed, because right, we've gone backwards. Now what I need to do is very carefully just pick out this part of the image. So let's start by just doing that part, and the left hand side that goes with it. So we'll have all the left hand side that goes with that part of the image, and just being very careful here to make sure that the eraser is only just staying on the right hand side of the tree trunk that I'm interested in, and we'll carefully just make sure we've got the right level of foliage, and that's all in order and looks pretty good to me. Okay, so now we've got some cropping to do because we've got some misalignment at the top of the image here. So what I'm going to do is select the crop tool, crop that top part in to get rid of that slight unevenness, take the bottom in very slightly, and I'm just going to pull the left hand side across very slightly as well, so that we've got a tree on the left up here close to the edge, we've got a tree on the right close to the edge, and the main image, I think I might actually crop that in a bit more so that the central tree, this tree becomes the centre of the image. So I'll do that, I'll just crop that in a bit tighter still, and I'll lift the bottom up a little bit more. I think that's probably what I will accept as the image. So having just done the wrong thing there and not clicked the correct button, I will now go back and do that again. Bear with me. So we want to get to the point that that tree is on the centre line of the image pretty much to balance it, which it's pretty much doing. So I'll accept that as the image. Okay, that's now the image. I'll flatten the image because I don't need to do anything further with it, and I can now close that, which will export it back into Lightroom. Hopefully we'll export it back into Lightroom. Okay, so now we're back in Lightroom. This is the image I've produced, and I've just used the painting brush to actually highlight a bit of colour into these ferns, just to give a little bit more variation in the foreground, by basically raising the colour temperature to make them slightly warmer, and also brightening them very slightly, which is, I think, just added a little bit more interest to these rather flat and boring ferns. Nice colour balance. I really do like this image. There's a lot of detail there. The fern, the moss on the tree trunks is perfectly visible, and that's the image, and I like it. I don't know if anyone else will. Please leave comments in the section below. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope this has been informative for you and sort of gives you an insight into what I do and how I think about framing a picture. In this case, I couldn't get it exactly as I wanted it on site, so I had to actually cheat in Photoshop, but at the end of the day, it's the image that counts. It really doesn't matter how you come by it, I don't think. I don't feel it's cheating. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.